Chris, how are you?
I am great.
I hear it in your voice. I expected that almost of you though. So, what does it mean to be great, to feel great?
I'm excited. I mean, I think that so much of being great is just really having dreams. I mean, like having the possibility to keep moving forward and see when things come together. Meeting new people, new opportunities. That to me is what's great. And getting focused on stuff.
Okay, Chris, you're a disruptor in the world of human potential and human performance. Not because of what has happened in your life, but how you've responded. And I want to I want to open up one of the most dynamic moments in your life and understand it better if you're okay to go there.
Yeah, please, let's do it.
Okay, so December 20, 1988, and the experience that happened on that hill, I don't even have the right words for it. Um, but you're a freshman in college, and you're in Massachusetts, and you and a fellow competitor were on the mountain testing out some different skis. So, what happens? What happened that day?
I mean, I think uh, none of these, it's one day, right? But at the same time, there's a continuation from like what happened in the past to what might happen in the future. And it's interesting. I went to college as a ski racer. I wanted to ski race in college. I wanted to ski race Division 1. That for me was where I was going to prove myself. And by saying that I was going to prove myself, it was like I was going to prove myself to myself. Like college is the end of our education in some ways, or the view of ending our education, but it was also the end of like my childhood. Like I wanted to prove that when I left the house, I could be successful. And skiing, I thought in a lot of ways is where I wanted to prove that. So I wanted to put myself, this is the interesting thing, in that you're asking about that specific day. But in the time leading up to it, I wanted to put myself in a really difficult situation to prove that I could handle it. I felt like as a ski racer, the hardest part is the start, is bringing all of your ability and all of your focus to the start of a ski race. It sounds like it should be relatively easy, but there are just so many distractions. And so in the preparation for the season, I was going through dryland training, and I felt like my goal was to push myself to the point that I wanted to quit. And I wanted to do that every day, because if I went just a little bit further, then I felt like I could be creating a new narrative. And so the day of December 20th of 88, it was my first day of Christmas vacation. I'd come home that night, finished exams the day before. I think I had 2 exams the day before. And my brother and I went up to the place where we'd run up skiing, a place called Berkshire East. And Massachusetts, oftentimes winter doesn't come. It's not like the Bing Crosby kind of winter sometimes. And it was just, the mountain was almost all brown. There was just one strip of snow, one trail that was open. But luckily, the guy who managed the mountain, his kids ski raced with us. So we were going to get the train that day, even though there was very little space that was open. And I was just searching for that feeling, for that feeling of being in concert with my equipment, with my technique, with my fitness, all of that stuff. And my ski popped off in the middle of a turn, just really strange. And I don't remember anything after my ski popping off. I was conscious, but I think I was in shock. So I don't remember any of it. But sort of going back and talking to my brother, talking to some of my friends, it sounded like I really just fell in the middle of the trail and sort of slid to the side of the trail. I guess I told them I didn't think I hit a tree or anything like that. And so it's kind of interesting in that it's probably one of the most important times of my life. But at the same time, it's a bit of a black hole as far as my memory is concerned.
It's interesting that when I asked the question, like what happened that day, you first went to your philosophy of life leading up to that moment. And you're talking about, I wanted to prove myself. And then you added to myself. So that qualifier, I think, is going to be materially important as we march on in the conversation. But it's noted that you went to what led to that moment from a philosophical position first. And then the context, if I'm tracking correctly, you added, I wanted to push limits to the place that I wanted to stop. Okay, so I'm going to put those two together in a minute. And then the third is I wanted to be in concert. And you talked about concert with yourself, your fitness, your equipment, and your craft, basically.
Yeah.
And then you fell. Sounds benign. Your boot pushed out, you slid.
Yeah, I mean, it is benign. I mean, that's the interesting thing in that I probably took a lot of falls in my life that were worse than this fall. And so it's interesting that you say benign just because yeah, seemingly benign. You fall over. I was going 20 to 30 miles an hour. I wasn't going super fast, but at the same time, I was going fast enough that something could happen. And yeah, that's that moment in time. And I don't know. I mean, it's interesting. I don't know that we can plan sometimes for that moment in time.
Okay. All right. So how many turns from the start? Because you picked the start as an important moment. So how many turns from the start do you remember that you took?
This is interesting. So I was actually free skiing. I was not in a course at the time. So I
Okay.
was just warming up. So I would have to imagine, I mean, I'm just going back and kind of looking at the mountain in my mind's eye or that trail. And it was probably four or five, then maybe like two more. I mean, like six, seven turns or something.
Okay. So you're still getting warm and well, two things. One is when you go back into your mind's eye, are you watching from like almost a helicopter perspective or from a lift line perspective, or are you looking at the pitch through your own goggles?
I think it was more of a helicopter
More of a
kind of
helicopter.
perspective.
Yeah, okay. And then if you were to just help me understand what was the slope grade? Was it steep? Was it moderate?
Oh, it's basically like an intermediate type trail.
Okay. So should be no big deal. You're just using this to get warm?
Yeah, I mean, well, one, it was the only one that was open, right?
Oh,
But
that's right. Yeah, yeah.
we were
Okay.
warming up, getting ready to train, and actually, the coach said to take two runs and then meet him at the timing shack. And we went down, and he wasn't there, and so we took one more run. So this was actually the third run. So that's the there might be something there, right?
It's funny you say that. In surfing, kind of one of the things is like we made a promise in high school, like my group of surf friends were like, we'll never say it to each other. Like, hey, let me just get one more. And because it felt like there was this weird synergy between saying, hey, let me just get one more because you're tired, you're out there, it's just one more, you're getting a little greedy, with wanting to get one more wave. And it feels like things go sideways, for us. So we made this interesting little pack amongst us in high school. Like, we're not going to say that to each other, So, like, is that kind of how you're framing the one more run?
It's yes,
Hmm.
and I think in some ways this is. I mean, you're talking about nature to a certain extent, but then it's also it gets to be a part of when something this profound happens to you, right? You try to think of like it's almost like a karmic thing. It's almost like it's something that's bigger than me and something that I can't quite understand. How I could go from being, as able as I ever was to suddenly not being able to walk and whether there's some reason for that, and I've let go of trying to figure out necessarily what that is, but at the same time, yeah, there's a part of that is just like, okay, was it the third run? Was it exactly what you're talking about? Like just one more, let's just get one more. It's innocuous, it's benign, and apparently not.
Yeah. Okay, so let's zoom back in. Let's say let's go to like turn four. So you've had
Mhm.
two runs in, you're on lap three, you're three turns from the top, you're leaning into turn four. Do you remember anything about that turn?
Turn four would probably be right around. Okay, so you're good. This is there's actually something here. This is so so one of the guys who had been kind of my rival as I was growing up. He was at a different college, and but we were all back there, and he was fiddling with something, and he was the guy who was always he was the hardest worker, the straightest arrow, that kind of guy. And I think I made a turn probably around turn 4 that just kind of, he was fiddling with something, and I kind of gave him a little bit of a hard time and made a turn sort of close to him so that his head sort of snapped up, kind of giving him a little bit of a hard time. I mean, not putting him in jeopardy or anything, in danger, but yeah, that was probably about the fourth turn, I would imagine. Yeah.
Go to corner 5, turn 5.
So then it was really, I think it was that turn by him, and then 5 would be, there was a little bit of a knoll, and so it just sort of dropped out, and then turned back to the other way, and 5 is effectively when I dropped out of sight of anybody else. So nobody saw me crash. I don't remember it, and nobody saw it happen.
And then what is your first memory?
So memory was really, it's almost like a series of snapshots. The first memory was actually in the hospital. So ski patrol skied me down, ambulance took me to the hospital, and it was a Franklin County Medical Hospital. And my father, who was a teacher, came up from school. Somebody at the mountain had alerted him that there'd been a problem. He went up to the hospital. And so my first memory is my father looking down on me. And my father he wears glasses, he has a mustache. And so in my view, it was almost like a caricature kind of thing. But it also, with the mustache, it makes it easy to look like a frown. And so what I took out of that photo was that I was really, that I was in trouble. And then that was the end of it.
And then next memory?
The next memory, so they ended up having to fly me via helicopter to the next hospital, the Hartford Hospital. And so they wheeled me out. And the next memory was effectively just that I was cold, that I was lying there I mean, sometimes it seems like, I don't know how much time you've spent in a hospital, but sometimes it seems like you can be you feel like you're abandoned in some, it's like, we're going to park you here. And I was sort of parked and waiting for the helicopter
In the hallway?
I think I was on like a tarmac or something. I think I
Oh,
was
jeez.
outside.
Yeah. No, I haven't had that experience. I have sat in a gurney in a hallway like, okay, what are we doing? But not on the tarmac. Okay. And then does your memory kick in from that point forward?
No,
Oh, so
it's still sort of snapshots. The next one is going into like either a CT scan or an MRI or something, where the wall of the thing is like an inch and a half from your nose, and it's claustrophobic, and the nurse telling me, don't fall asleep in here. And I fell asleep in there, and then I got in trouble for falling asleep in there. And then I finally made it back to my hospital room. And obviously the doctor had told my parents, and I think my brother and father were there. And then they ended up leaving and going home. And my mother stayed in the chair next to my bed. And what happens when you go into shock is that your system shuts down, right? So like, I'm not processing whatever's going on in my stomach or whatever. So they put what's it called, an IG tube? I think it's called an IG tube, like up my nose, down my stomach, down my throat, into my stomach, to drain the stomach. And my mother, I can only imagine, I mean, this is the worst day of her life. And this is where she's going, I would so much rather be in his situation. Like, I trade places with him in a moment here. And I said, I'm taking this thing out because it made me feel old, and it made me feel sick. And so I just pulled the IG tube out, and then proceeded to vomit all night long, because that tube was there for a reason, to keep me from vomiting. But I didn't like it. It had like a little piece of tape on the nose that was keeping it in place. So those are my memories to get to the end of the first day.
when do you remember, or do you remember what it was like when you got your diagnosis? And can you just inform everybody what that diagnosis was?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question. So what happened was, I was doing all the tests. My parents and my brother were in this, what they describe as this small, dark, dank waiting room. And it was just the three of them. And the doctor finally came out and he said, basically, your brother's broken his back and he'll never walk again. And the guy turned and left, and sort of no bedside manner kind of thing. And so as a result of that message of like, which you say, okay, you'll never walk again, but you also hear like his life is over kind of thing. And so they actually wanted to help me create my own narrative around what was going on. They didn't want to burden me with sort of this stigma and this belief of like your life is over. And so I don't remember anybody telling me. They told me that one of the nurses actually told me, but I don't remember that. So I don't remember. I broke thoracic 10 and 11. So I broke two vertebrae in my back, damaged the spinal cord, paralyzed effectively from like the belly button down. But nobody gave me that after school special kind of moment of like, you've broken your back, your life is over, you'll never do this or that. And so I was really lucky, I think, in that way that my parents gave me the opportunity to create my own narrative.
Okay, I want to take a quick little break right here to talk about Keon. You've probably heard that the human body is mostly water, but what you likely don't know is that the next largest component after water are amino acids, which make up about 50% of your solid body mass. So these building blocks are essential for health and wellness and fitness. No matter how you like to move, wherever and however you stay fit, amino acids are essential. And that's why Keon Aminos are one of my go-to supplements for fitness and health as well. Keon Aminos is backed by over 20 years of clinical research. They have the highest quality ingredients. There's no filters, no junk. They undergo rigorous quality testing. They got the taste right. They've got this thing working. It also gives you a natural boost in energy. There's an athletic recovery mechanism, as I mentioned earlier. So I just want to encourage you to check out Keon Aminos and give them a shot. So right now, as a Finding Mastery listener, you can save 20% off monthly deliveries and 10% on a one-time purchase. So punch over to getkeon.com/finding mastery. So you spell that get, G-E-T, Keon, K-I-O-N, getkeon.com/finding mastery to get one of my fundamental supplements for fitness, for health. It's Keon Aminos. And Finding Mastery is also brought to you by Bio-Optimizers. As a Finding Mastery listeners, I know you understand the importance of a good night rest. And sleep is not only essential for recovery, but it can affect your mood, your hormones, weight gain, weight loss, and so many other factors that may be impacting your health. So if you're struggling with sleep in any way, I want to encourage you to check out what Bio-Optimizers are doing. This could be an unlock for you. It's been a game changer for me. All it takes is a glass of water and Magnesium Breakthrough. That's the name of their product. And I take it 30 minutes before I hit the pillow. They have 7 essential forms of magnesium included in this full spectrum serving, designed to help you relax, to unwind. So just recently, the company released their 4th upgraded formulation. I love what they're doing. I want to encourage you to check them out. So for a limited time, Bio-Optimizers, the makers of Magnesium Breakthrough, they're offering an additional bonus gift for the next 1,000 customers while supplies last. With your purchase, they're including free bottles of their full line of digestive health. So there's some probiotics in there. They've got a product to help alleviate heartburn and acid reflux. I want to encourage you to check out what they're doing. To activate this exclusive limited time offer, visit magbreakthrough.com/finding mastery and then enter the code finding mastery at checkout. Again, that's MAG breakthrough, magbreakthrough.com/finding mastery and then use that code finding mastery at checkout. And with that, let's jump right back into our conversation. Help me understand how you and probably your family co-created that narrative.
I think part of it was a reaction, and obviously I'm trying to fill in some of what they must have been thinking. But obviously, I had known them my whole life, right, and have known them my whole life. So I think that a big part of it was that they really just didn't want to put a label on somebody, and part of that is that like my father's first job out of school was teaching at a I guess it was a boarding school for what were called like disturbed kids, at that point. And really now we might call them like people on the spectrum. So they were super, super bright kids, but that wasn't a label back in the 70s. And I think that that approach for them was really important, was being able to see the individual past whatever label society or you know they or whatever might put on themselves. And so I think that really was a part of it. And for me, having been an athlete, there's, you can call it denial if you want, but there's a part of it of like, well, you don't know me. You don't know me. I am in the business of trying to create miracles, kind of thing. And this is the biggest miracle that I have to try to create. And so I think that for on my side, that's really what it was, is that, hey, you don't know me. You don't know what I'm willing to do to be successful here. And for my parents, I think it was allowing the individual to thrive.
Okay, that goes right back to the beginnings of how you started the story about you wanted to push limits, your limits. You wanted to go as hard as you possibly could go. And that's you now bridging these two concepts together, you saying, like, nah, you don't know me. I'm different. And I want to create miracles and magic. And I'm adding some color of my own in here.
Yeah.
And and I'm not going to just kind of fall to the box that you want to place me into, that this is what statistical medical diagnoses and probabilities have to say. You're like, yeah, but you don't know me. I'm different. I'm not a statistic.
It's exactly it. And the reason why I started with the idea of where it was, the philosophy of wanting to push myself to the point where I was uncomfortable, wanting to figure out who I was, because it's so easy not to bump up against that threshold or whatever it is. And suddenly I got I got a much bigger challenge than I had anticipated.
Okay, so is there a chip on your shoulder? Um, is there an anger to this? Like, you don't know me, or is it like they actually don't know me? This is kind of funny that they're going this way. Is it more like a private inside joke, or is there a compassion to it? Like, what is the tone of those words when you're honest with yourself?
Yeah. When I'm honest with myself, it's more of an essential, like an existential kind of thing, in that this is who I am. And so I didn't have a chip, but at the same time, I didn't really have time for people who wanted to put that limit on me, because, you know, because I didn't need it. I didn't need them to put any limit on me, because I might believe it. And I didn't want to. This was about the existence of who I was and who I wanted to be as a person. And so yeah, so it really was, there was no chip. It was just, I just have to come from my place of greatest being in
Okay,
order to be successful.
this is a two-parter. And this is the first part is meant to be succinct. Is how do you finish this sentence? I am.
Uh, wow. Uh, I am. I think I am a striver.
You're still not going to be boxed in. So there's a couple different ways that we think about identity: performance-based identity, purpose-driven identity. And so you have not foreclosed the identity to just to I am a skier, or I am a communicator of something. Like you've broadened that and deepened that across the purpose, which is I am a striver. And then if we said striver of, you would say,
Yeah, I mean, it really is a striver of personal experience and growth.
how do we take that core philosophy with this other thing that I have read in preparation for this conversation, that you said growing up, you just wanted to be part of the big kids, that your biggest fear at that time was being left behind and not being able to keep up. And so I'm wondering how those two fold together. And then I've got a quick follow on right behind it.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so that I was really talking about. The second part was when I was really 6 years old, when I was starting to ski race. My best friend and I were 6 years old, and his brother was 13, and all of the cool kids, and so, yeah, we just wanted to keep up. We wanted to be cool, and the idea of sort of reconciling those 2 things, the idea of being a striver is that, yeah, I think I got that example early on, that it was the people who could do things. It was the people, because in my mind, like, they were the best in the world, right? And so that's what I got a chance to see. It was like, wow, I want to be like them. And so that example is what I wanted to live up to.
So that fear is about not being able to be included, like being pushed on the outside. And as a 6-year-old, like it's brilliant and not very sophisticated. It's like just looking there and being like, what do I need to do to be okay, accepted, be part of that? The big kids. And as an adult, when we look back, I'm wondering how much of that is still part of your DNA, your makeup, and and the quick follow on. So that's like a percentage maybe, but and low to high. But then the quick follow on that I wanted to ask you is when you were working through your diagnosis and the reality that you are no longer able to walk, I would love to know what you wrestled with, like the fear and the worry and the what occupied you and from that fear framework. What percentage of you currently as an adult is still wrestling with fitting in, being accepted?
Oh, wow. That's a really interesting question, and it probably, I mean, I'd say, I don't know. I mean, percentages are hard, right? I'd probably say it's like a 25% percentage, I mean, I think maybe it might be bigger than that. I mean, there's probably an ebb and flow to this fitting in percentage.
And who do you want to fit in now or be part of and be, accepted by? Um, even if it's a smaller percentage, like who, who is that group?
That group, more than anything, is the group that I respect. The people who I look up to, the people who I say, wow, those are some amazing people. Those are the people that I want to, yeah, yeah, those are the people that I want to fit in with. It's not, I don't, I still get it occasionally, like people on the street, random kind of things, like, get the staring, I get the whatever. And honestly, I don't care about that. That part doesn't bother me at all, because they don't know me. But the people who know me, those are the ones I want to fit in with.
And are those people your intimate loved ones? Or are those people like when you say it's A, B, and C person that have done amazing things or have high moral standards or like w- maybe it's a crossover of both, but if you had to pick a camp, is it more the intimate ones that know me and I want to be deeply connected? Or is it more like, were you thinking about the extraordinaries in your community that you're like, yeah, I just like those big kids are still cool in my life.
It's probably the latter, really, because the
Yeah.
people who really know me, the intimate people, are the people who actually do know me. I mean, I felt this coming onto your podcast, Mike. I mean, it's like, I want to fit in with you, and it's like those kinds of people, the people that I respect who are doing great things, are the ones. Yeah, I want to be in their camp.
One, I'll take that as a compliment, but also not accept any of it because it's really, I recognize that in me too. Like I don't want to say that even out loud, but there's a part of me that craves being accepted and being included. And I want to say I'm an independent man and, but there's a part of me that yearns for those relationships and that acceptance. So let's go back to your philosophy here is that or you knew that you're not walking now and you got a diagnosis that you might not ever walk. But at that time, what did you wrestle with? Like what was what occupied your thinking?
it was forward thinking. So it wasn't permanent in my mind. So I sat there. I mean, I couldn't train, right? I was lying in the hospital bed, but I could do mental imagery. So I was imagining myself skiing over and over as I'm lying in my hospital bed. And I was thinking, okay, the first step is I get out of here and I go back to school. And our race, the Middlebury Carnival, is the last race of the year. And I thought, okay, I can get back for that, and I won't be able to race in it, but I'll be able to forerun, and so I'll be a part of it. And so
You'll
that's
wait,
really
you'll be able to do what?
forerun. So like people who aren't necessarily in the race, but they check out the course effectively. So it's like you're a racer, but it doesn't count. So you go and you run the course beforehand, and they go, okay, everything looks fine. This is it. It's safe and whatever. And so I thought, okay, this is what I can do, and I can put that stamp on it and say, I'm back. And so in the hospital, that's really what I was imagining, is that this is a temporary situation. I don't know how to answer this question. The doctors don't know how to answer this question, but I have to find something more within me to be able to answer that question. And that was the most interesting part for me, just because I think as a kid growing up, I always felt like I had a greater power than I was ever able to access.
Whoa, 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 whoa. What does that mean?
So I mean, and this might be fantasy on my part too. So I drew this analogy at one point to it being like like my power was this, essentially like a balloon filled with air, and and that if you just squished it, it would come out. But instead, it went through sort of like this labyrinth kind of thing and came out as something that was not necessarily the full volume of air. And so I'd always felt like I had more in me, but I hadn't been able to access it. Whereas when I was in the hospital, I was like, you have no choice. You've got to find a way to get into however you are, which really ultimately is the vulnerability and the honesty that you were talking about. But it was also, it's funny, I call it, like, in my mind, I call it realizing possible. And what realizing possible is winning that moment with myself, like the resisting the urge to panic, resisting the urge to rage, resisting, that urge to just quit. And so it really was being able to say, yes, I know that chemical thing is coming up within me, but my competitor is exactly that thing that is arising within me, that chemical response that I've listened to throughout my life. But I have to win that battle with that. And that's where it's like this intermediate little battle, and it might not materialize itself in any great gains or anything, but mentally it was winning the battle with myself, which is kind of why I call it realizing possible. It's kind of like the idea of, like, we have big goals, but we've got to win those like little battles before we can get to the big thing.
Are you okay? Are you working in a way more like karate or aikido? Karate meaning that when you've got that thing coming up, almost like it feels like against you, like against the man that you want to be, you've got that rage or something. Are you trying to block it? Or are you, that's karate, or are you trying to use some aikido slash maybe judo where you notice it, you work with it, and you use that energy, that movement for your ultimate repositioning of power. So
I
that's
think,
like the two are very different.
yeah, and I didn't know the intricacies of karate and aikido, so thank you for explaining that to me. But it's really, I think it's more aikido kind of thing, which is, I mean, it's the same kind of thing as like the starting gate, right? Where you get all of these emotions and you get this chemical response, and it's like, can I, am I in direct conflict with it, or can I shape this into something that is actually going to be beneficial to me? Can I sort of ride this this chemical high, or whatever, that's the competition kind of high, to perform better than I might have anyway. And so really, I think it is more of that aikido of, like, taking it and saying, okay, this is what I'm going to do. It's reminding me, this urge to quit, this urge to panic, this urge to rage is reminding me of how important this is, and taking it and turning it in an opposite direction to say, yes, it is important, but at the same time, my ability to maintain my sense of happiness. I mean, there wasn't much I could do, right? I'm lying there in bed, and all I could do was maintain a positive outlook. I could give my body, I could give my whole organism, the opportunity, the best opportunity to heal. And so really, yeah, that's what this is. It's like taking it and using that energy, but also maintaining this optimistic outlook because I needed it. It was all I had. That was my only power.
You never got to get back on two skis the way that you were once highly proficient.
Never did.
So how'd you manage when maybe you're still working for it? I don't know, but like how did you manage when you're like, okay, well, I'm not going to be able to race that way again. Like, what? Tell me about that uh,
That's
acceptance
an
at some
interesting
level.
one because there are two parts of it. One, I mean, for a long time, for a period of time, I felt like the only way when having talked to a lot of people who are a lot of my friends who are in a similar situation, you feel like the only way to recover is to walk, right? I mean, you break your arm's in a cast, they take the cast off, your arm is fine. This is one of those where you never get to that point again. You never take the cast off. So there was a part of me that thought, okay, I still need to figure it out. And I went back to school. I went back to Middlebury for the spring semester. I had 2 months after being in the hospital for 2 months. Went to a secondary rehabilitation place called Shake a Leg, which was a holistic healing center. And the objective there, I went in thinking, okay, I'm wheeling in, but I'm walking out. And so that was my objective, was I was going to get back there. But the other part of it, the year before my accident, I saw a woman named Diana Golden at a ski race. She was a above the knee amputee. And she showed up at this race, which had a lot of national team members, at least one person who won a World Cup afterwards. And there was this one-legged woman there. And she really, to me, the first part was I thought, what's she doing there? But the second part was she was really what I thought was a great athlete. I mean, in that she was like, look, I'm going to fall down and I'm going to get back up. My wife hates this analogy, but I like it. So I'm going to continue to use it. She was like Jason from Friday the 13th. She really was. Like, you felt like, that guy is always chasing you. You felt like you could kill him and that was it. And then you were safe, but he kept coming back in each scene. And that's the way that she seemed to be. Like, she was like, I'm going to keep going. You can't stop me, which to me is a great athlete. But it's also like the idea of talent versus grit in some ways are two opposing things. And sometimes you think, oh, well, I'm talented, this is it. But really, talent with that grit, with what she had, is the best thing. And so I saw her, and she was the most memorable person at that race. And I wanted to be like her. And it was something bigger than ski racing. It was bigger than ski racing in the sense that it spoke to what it meant to be a a successful human being. Was this sense of like, yeah, I'm going to keep going and I'm going to find a way to be successful.
Okay, I want to take a quick little break right here to talk about Shopify. Shopify is the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. We use them here at Finding Mastery. So what they do is they're designed so that businesses can reach their customers anywhere, in person, online, across social networks. And they've got this ever-growing suite of channel integrations and apps that make it really easy to use. So what that means is you can synchronize your online and in-person sales. You can stay effortlessly informed. You gain insights on helping you grow with detailed reporting, conversion rates, profit margins, and beyond. Shopify has created a really thorough and thoughtful platform. And our team at Finding Mastery, we're loving what they're doing, the way that they integrate with our business. And it was a no-brainer for us in the next phase of our business to fold that in. And, so I hope maybe you'll consider the same. Millions of companies around the globe trust Shopify to power their business. So whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur or an established business owner, I want to encourage you to go check out Shopify. It could be a game changer for you. So to get started, go to shopify.com/findingmastery. And when you plug that in, you get a free 14-day trial and then get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. So you test them out, right? So that's Shopify, shopify.com/findingmastery. Again, go check them out. I think you're going to like what they're doing. And Finding Mastery is brought to you by Athletic Greens. I love Athletic Greens. If you've been part of this community, you know that. If you're new here, I just want to encourage you to go check out what they're doing. And so I've been using Athletic Greens for just about 8 years now, and I'm stoked on it. I love the energy levels that I have on a daily basis, and Athletic Greens is part of that equation. It's just one scoop is all I use of Athletic Greens, and inside that, there's 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, whole food source superfoods, probiotics, adaptogens, all to help, get the day started right. I use it in the morning. So their special blend of ingredients are designed to support gut health, nervous system, immune system, energy, recovery, focus. They're thinking about aging in some of their vitamins and minerals that they've put together as well. So right now, I think it's a great time to invest in your immune system for obvious reasons. And so there's no need for a million different pills and supplements to look after your health. Athletic Greens is making it super simple. It's one scoop and then free 1-year supply that they're offering us for vitamin D. And they're also throwing in 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. So just punch over to athleticgreens.com/findingmastery. Again, it's athleticgreens.com/findingmastery. And with that, let's jump right back into our conversation. I needed to see somebody like me. And when I was a kid, even as an adult, like me to say, oh, look, that's possible for them, huh? And enough, when I say like me, enough identifying points that I feel like it's a close enough proximity for me to believe in that too. And so I think that there's something very powerful about that because you're offering that to so many people. And people listening, I bet a lot of people listening go, wow, Chris sounds a lot like me. And then when they look at you, they would say, but Chris doesn't look like me.
Right.
And you've got this radical insight about the invisible people. Can you share that? It's heartbreaking.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and so, yeah, so there what, 1.2 billion people in the world with physical disabilities, like 15% of the population. But it's from the time we're little, we're taught not to stare at someone who looks different. It's impolite to stare. And the problem is if we never get a chance to ask questions, we never get a chance to get to know somebody who seemingly is different from us, they become invisible. And that was the easy way. I mean, in some ways it was easy to feel like I was invisible, like I was part of a group that had just disappeared out of politeness in some ways.
How do we do better?
I think that one of the things we're not really taught in school. It's interesting having this conversation because you're asking me questions, and then I'm telling you that we're not taught how to ask questions.
Hmm.
I really do. I mean, I think that a big part of it is we gravitate toward people who are like us because then it's relatively easy. But how do we start a conversation? How do we find a way? How do I find a way to ask you something about what really matters to you? How do I get to a point where then you're interested in the conversation and I get to learn something
Yeah.
about who you are?
Yeah. I'm laughing at like kids have this right, like the innocence. Like if the adult doesn't corrupt the kid, with like, don't look at his legs,
Yeah.
or whatever it might be, and the kid comes up and, hey Chris, what happened to your legs? You'd be like, oh, let me tell you, or whatever. I'm
Yeah.
not trying to be callous, but I'm trying to be like so
No,
casual in it that it's real, like so. Okay, so let's teach me.
no. I mean, it really is the demystifying. And we are. so I can talk about this, right? And one day I was in the gym. I live in Park City, Utah. It was a Sunday. It was the middle of the winter. I was in the gym, and one other in like middle of the day, and one other woman was there, and she was a bilateral amputee, below the knee amputee, had like carbon fiber legs. I happened at the time to be reading a book about a guy named Hugh Eyre who lost his legs, I believe, on Mount Washington. Got caught in a storm. He was a rock climber, mountain climber. Got caught in a storm, got frostbite, gangrene, lost his legs. And so I see this woman walking around, and I'm thinking, I wonder if she had frostbite. I wonder if she, and the question that you're not supposed to really ask is like, what happened to you? Because the problem with the what happened to you, I mean, sometimes it can work fine, and a lot of it is intonation and what you bring in terms of intention, but at the same time, it can feel like I just need to know what happened to you so that it won't happen to me. Tell me that it won't happen to me. Tell me that you were doing something stupid so I don't necessarily have to feel sorry for you. I mean, that's sometimes I'm projecting, but this is what it feels like
Oh,
oftentimes.
geez. Yeah. Right.
And so I was thinking, oh, did she get caught on a mountain? Can I? And I was like, okay, you can't ask that question. You can't ask that question. And so finally, I'm just like, I'm doing like flies or something like that. And she comes
And
by and goes,
you're in a wheelchair.
I'm in a wheelchair. So I'm in a wheelchair. And I got out of my chair. I was lying on a bench. I was doing flies or whatever. And she walks by and she goes, oh, that's a lot of weight. And I was like, oh, really? Like, is that how easy it is to start a conversation?
Yeah, all you have to do is say to a man lifting weights, "You look strong," and then it's
And
like,
we'll be your friend forever.
oh, that's right.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say that you and I meet in person. We don't know each other. We don't have any history of who each other are, and I see you in the gym, and I want to know. I want to know your story. I don't want to sit and have an hour conversation, but I want to know, like, I don't even know what to say. I feel like I'm part of that conditioning, and I'm a very curious person. So like I don't even know what to say. So can you teach, like,
Yeah.
can you give me a way in? Can you give all of us listening a way in?
Yeah. I think that a big part of it is coming to it in a human kind of way. Like, hey, I don't want to be impolite, but I'm curious. Were you always in a chair? Did something happen? Or are you okay answering that question? Because some people really aren't. Some people don't want to answer the question or whatever. I mean, I'm totally fine with it. But I think if you come to it with that human sense of curiosity of like, hey, I do happen to notice this. What happened? What was the issue? I think it can be as simple as that, but it's not I need to know it for who I am.
I want to know it so we can keep. It's not
Yeah.
a thing in our relationship, or not a thing in our,
Yeah.
like,
The pink
huh?
elephant kind of thing.
The pink
Right.
elephant, right? Hmm.
Yeah. And I think it's
Hmm.
more about intention than anything else, because it can feel condescending oftentimes,
Yeah.
and you're like, hey, just want to be upfront, like, just you don't have to ask this, but I'm just curious.
Okay.
What happened? How did that go? What's your story?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Super meaningful for me. And then let me snap back to a scenario here, which is, let's imagine that there is a 14-year-old, super malleable, in a hospital chair, hospital bed, and the family knows, and you are walking in to see this athlete that no longer has mobility below the belly button, similar to your case.
Sure.
Okay, so let's say they're 2 months in, and they look up at you and they say, "Chris, I can't handle too much. I need three things. I need to know. Give me three things to do. Three principles to have be like north stars for me. Help me." If you were
Yeah.
to
So
if you were to strip this thing down, what do you say?
I, I think, I mean, in so many ways, purpose is such an important part, right? But what I would say is find something you love. Find a reason that you're willing to do the work. Whether that's for yourself, for your career, for whatever you want to do, whether it's for your family, whether it's for, I mean, 14-year-old kid, I was going to say for your children, but probably not for the 14-year-old kid, for the children. But yeah, I mean, I think that that really is the objective is find something you like, find something you love, find a willingness to put yourself in there, because that's how you change as a person. That's how you grow. That's how you're willing to struggle. And if you're willing to struggle in so many ways, this is like, I feel like if you're willing to struggle, then that really is the essence of being human, is being willing to struggle. Find something you love, find a reason to struggle to make it happen. And you're going to grow, and you're going to be happier that way, regardless of the situation.
So you go one principle.
I really think it probably is one principle. I mean,
Yeah.
find something you love and find a reason to make it real.
Oh, that's pretty simple. And so it is so apt to so many of us. Okay. I've heard you share this sentiment, and I'm not going to get your quote right, but the sentiment is that no matter what you've done, how educated, how smart, whatever you are, something is going to happen in your life and this is a quote from you, that's going to cut you to the bone, that forces you to reconsider who you are. So I will nod my head and say nobody gets through this life without trauma. Big trauma, little trauma, trauma. And when that happens, how do you extend from that first principle? What are some steps that you could offer for anyone that feels like they've been cut to the bone?
Yeah. I mean, one, knowing that we're not alone is something that's really helpful. Even if in the situation is completely overwhelming. But I think that knowing that things do happen, and that recovery is an important part of whatever happens. I mean, I told you my motto is, it's not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens to you. And it really is. I mean, I think that's where we demonstrate who we are as people, is when something happens. And that idea of finding that purpose and finding that meaning. And it can be really hard, because looking at the things that can happen to us. I mean, I remember my mother died a few years ago, just unexpectedly. And I didn't think I could cry like that.
Hmm.
I mean, I had no idea. I mean, just the full body. It was one of the most traumatic things, and it took me a while. I mean, to really feel like there wasn't just a hole in my life. But part of it was also like, she was, she one would be upset if my life was affected as a result of her dying. She's like, no, you need to get on with your life. You need to, don't use me as an excuse not to do something. But then the other greater part of that is living with the honor of how she lived her life, that she brought so much happiness to so many people. And I think that that's some of what comes out. It's not always easy to find that root out. If we're blaming ourselves for whatever has happened, that makes it a whole lot more difficult. But at the same time, if we can find a way to find that purpose, and to be able to 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 celebrate I mean, it's what the only guarantee in life is change, right? Some things are going to change. And I feel like there are a couple of that we as human beings sort of have like two diametrically opposed desires. One, we want to be successful, and two, we don't really want to grow old. And we think that successful is something that's static. Like, once we get there, then we're successful, then all life is good. And we don't recognize that the learning, growing, and dreaming part of is the big part of not growing old, right? Is that we continue to change, we continue to evolve, and sometimes that is really painful. It's also often the thing that we look back on our lives and go, that's the thing that made the most sense. That was the greatest moment in my life. And, and I think we have to look at it and say, okay, life is not static. Life is fluid. It's this consistent sense of change. And if we can find a way to embrace that sense of change and make it okay and go, all right, well, this is a bigger change than I expected. But, okay, I didn't
Mm.
sign up for it, but it's time to move forward.
How do you finish this? My purpose is.
My purpose is to connect people. I mean, my mission is to turn perception of disability upside down, but I think it really is to connect people on that sense of the disability is the thing that stands in our way. How can I master myself to be able to live my life, live my dreams, and perform at my best? I mean, that might be something that's aspirational in some ways, that maybe we never get to exactly our best. But at the same time, I mean, as ski racers, we're always talking about like the search for the perfect turn. And maybe you never get there, but it's like wanting to get there. And so my purpose, and I think that really it's turning that perception of what we consider disability upside down, but also telling the story so that people can see themselves in that journey.
Which journey?
In that journey from wherever we are now to trying to be fulfilled, in that journey of trying to enjoy the struggle, trying to learn from that struggle, trying to effectively be a human, and trying to master our craft and master ourselves, which to me, I don't know, really seems like a lot of what we're supposed to do.
So if there's lots of dials to the master dial of mastery of self, okay, or mastery of self is maybe an output in just this construct I'm building, and there's lots of inputs to that output. What would you say are some of the key inputs for mastery of self?
Mastery of self, I think that number one is knowing that we have a choice in how we react. That's a huge dial. Um, I think that I mean that's a really big one. I'm trying to think if there are other ones, but really knowing that we have a choice is the biggest one for me. But then I think that the mastery of self is also being bold enough, being crazy enough to have big goals, to set those big goals, to say, this is what I want to do. I'm going to put myself all in. And not only am I going to put myself all in, I'm actually going to tell other people that this is what I want to do. Because not only, because I think we are our own easiest people to lie to, right? But if somebody else knows and they're like, hey, Mike, you said you were going to do that. And you're like, oh, no, yeah, I better. So I'm held to that greater responsibility. And I think that the other part of it is really being willing to accept incremental gains, to recognize that daily incremental gains are the things that end up becoming something big at some point. But recognizing that the patience of, we've got to get a little bit better today, we've got to get a little bit better tomorrow, and if we get there, each day is building on itself. And the other part of that, I think, in concert with that one, is that we're responsible for our confidence. That so often, I mean, you work with athletes, this is how often do we hear that in the interview afterwards? So it's like, oh, well, I did it because of my confidence. It was like my confidence allowed me to do it. It's like, okay, we hear about that. Is that just God given? Is that how this works? That certain people are just plopped down on this earth? And sometimes it seems that way too, right? That some people just are more confident than other people. But I believe that that's part of our nourishment is that we have to bring ourselves to improve our confidence. We have to help build our confidence and be responsible for that confidence.
Let me weigh in. I love the dials.
Thank
I
you.
love the dials. Um, I I wouldn't have chosen the way you did because we're going to think about some things differently. Which God, I love the dials. Because you're speaking right into some theory about agency, determination. Like you're really speaking about. Um, you're using those dials to ground right to well-researched principles. So it's really cool. Okay, so this confidence thing, yeah, some people naturally, based on their upbringing, that they come into the world, not maybe from birth, but they come into the world that you've met them at or that I'm meeting them at, whether it's young or older. And like, yes, they have confidence pretty wired, but it is a completely trainable skill. And it solely rests on the way that you speak to yourself. So but it needs to be real. You need to be able to back yourself with some credible self-talk. And it's this continual appraisal about what do I have inside? What is this challenge about? And do I have what it takes to be able to meet the challenge? If you can find ways to say, I can do that. I think I can do that. That looks like I can do that. I think I might be able to do that. All of that kind of stuff, that appraisal is where confidence comes from. It's what you say to yourself. And that is so trainable. When we become more aware that we have conversations with ourselves, and that we are constantly doing this equation, this math about the challenge ahead and the resources internally. I mean, it's so trainable. I wish somebody at a young age would have told me. This is probably why I'm in this profession. One of the handful of reasons I'm in this profession. I didn't have it.
Yeah. And
People
you
would
had
say
to
to me all the
go
time,
find that answer.
100%. And people, adults around me, kind, loving adults would say, hey, be confident. You just go out there, do your thing. You're so ready. Like, be confident. And I'm like, how? What? How? What do I do? Oh, just trust yourself. And quietly, I'm like, how? Like, okay, good. Hey, focus. Just focus, Mike. How? So it's trying to scratch that itch of like, how? And, like, what do I really do to make that happen? So it's just the appraisal and self-talk, to make it super simple. But you've got to earn the right to say, I can do hard things. You have to earn that. And you've earned it. How about it? Can anyone take that away from you? That statement, I can do hard things?
No, no,
No,
no, they really
no,
can't.
no.
Yeah. Other than me, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. But nobody, no environment or condition can actually take it away. You could give it away if you wanted to at any point, probably.
Right.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, good. All right. So fill this in. Success is.
Success is, wow. Success is. This sounds like a really simple and easy question. I might be vamping, looking for an answer at the moment, but I think that success is, what I'm coming up with is the success is a job well done. And I think that really a part of that is that it's so funny. Like as an athlete, the goal was always the top step of the podium, right? And if I made it there, it all made sense. But after I retired, what I look back on were like the two-a-days. Like those are the things that I miss. And you think about it and think, okay, the success is being able to do your job in the day. I look at that in terms of speaking in some ways. Like my job up there is in my I have to do my job, whether I'm nervous or whether whatever it is. My job is to put the audience at ease so that they can absorb what I'm saying. I have to give them an environment that's comfortable for them to make it work. And I feel like that's my job in some ways. And so it's like, how can I achieve it? And I feel like, yeah, success is a job well done.
So if I say, if I want to, I'm going to be silly here for a minute,
Yeah.
and you've only got one sentence to say to the next generation of global athletes. You only have one sentence, and and you're going to go on stage in this kind of virtual world. Every athlete is tuned in. They're all 16 years old, and they say, They introduce you, as United States Olympic and Paralympic Hall of Fame athlete, and his insight is the key.
One sentence. Wow. This is good. This is so one sentence, make this journey to find your best. But there is a part of me that wanted to quote Churchill and say never give up too. So
All right, good. Make this journey to find your best. So, is your best already in you and you need to like knock the calcium off? Or is your best out there, meaning in your future, and you need to work toward it to cobble together skills and practices? Like it- I think about this in those two lenses. Is it already in me, and I need to be fully me in this moment, and that is how I'm going to define being my best. Do that a lot. Or is it, no, my best is out there somewhere and I need to work towards it and I need a lot more skills.
yeah, and you know what? It's fine. I don't feel like it's an either or situation. I think that it is that the best is within us. That we've got to find a way to tap into, and that's almost like the power source of it. But it's an accumulation of experiences as well, right? Experiences, accumulation of learning, an acquiring of skills that allows us to get to that point. That's why I think that, essentially as an athlete, like you're an artist, you're hoping you're gaining an ability I want to say to like tell that performance in some ways, to like it's almost, it is a performance. It's a way of bringing this power of who you are, but an accumulation of skills and the ability to bring it together, and to avoid in some ways that self-consciousness that oftentimes gets in our way, to find the purity of self and the compilation of skills, or the combination of skills.
Well done. That is very cool, brother. Chris, tell us about your projects, your passion. One Revolution. I know people in the community are going, get me involved. Like, I want to be part of this. So, talk about One Revolution and like where can we follow along?
Yeah. So One Revolution is my nonprofit organization. Our mission is to turn perception of disability upside down. In doing that, we felt like the best audience was to go talk to kids. As you said, kids oftentimes will ask questions. They're not bound by political correctness. They want an answer, and then they go, "Okay, that sounds good." Where we as adults oftentimes are a little jaded and like, "Oh, that doesn't really fit with the way that I look at life, so you must be wrong." And so our program is called Name Tags. It looks at the labels. It's about getting beyond the labels that we put on ourselves and others, the limitations. It's resilience based. Motto is, it's not what happens to you, it's what you do with what happens to you. I have a couple of books that I've written. One is called Things I Want to Remember Not to Forget. I did a graduation speech at Middlebury College in 2011. NPR put it on their list of greatest commencement speeches ever, which was amazing and great because the day before I had woken up at my parents' house. My father, who reads like 5 newspapers before most people wake up, said, "You realize that you're the only non-famous person doing a big commencement address." I was like, "Cool. I wasn't nervous anyway. Thanks for the help." And so, yeah, so New York Times included me as one of the 13 commencement addresses that they highlighted. So it's kind of cool. So there's that book, and I actually taught myself how to draw, to write and illustrate a book called "Is It Lonely to Be a Four-Leaf Clover," which I did for my wife's birthday. And it's about a four-leaf clover that's hiding what makes it great until it meets a dandelion. She's a huge fan of dandelions, and they end up falling. It's very Disney, but they end up falling in love. And the question is, what's the baby going to look like? And it ends up looking like all of us, as unique as the four-leaf clover and bold and fierce as the dandelion. So I do that, and then I've been working a lot of television, doing stuff with Paralympics for NBC. I've got a TV show that I really want to get off the ground called Chris Waddell Living It. It was originally called I Wish I Could. It's an expert with a disability who teaches an adventure to an able-bodied person. We were shooting a bobsled episode right before lockdown, which I thought was a great idea to drive a bobsled until I got to the top of the bobsled course and went, who is the idiot who thought this was a good idea? And then you get to the bottom and you're like, that was awesome. That was great. So there's that. And then a podcast with that, Chris Waddell Living It, which is with what I call experts in the experience of being human. Athletes, artists, entrepreneurs, people who've taken the risk to realize their dreams, to figure out who they are.
I want to hang, Chris. I love what you're doing. I love where you're coming from. And what a treat to spend time with you. And so thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. This is a complete honor and a complete joy. I really appreciate it, Mike. And keep doing what you're doing. This is awesome.
Thank you, brother.